This money had to be transported from local churches to Rome. It had to be counted, recorded, and safeguarded. And the church needed credit to fund construction projects, military campaigns, and the lavish lifestyle of the papal court. Giovanni offered his services. He would handle the church's finances, move money from Paris to Rome without physically transporting gold, which was dangerous and expensive, provide credit when the Pope needed it. And in exchange, he would take a small percentage of every transaction. The Pope agreed. And with that agreement, Giovanni de' Medici became the most powerful banker in Europe. Because once you're the Pope's banker, everyone else needs you too. Kings wanted to stay in the Pope's good graces. Nobles wanted church positions for their sons. Everyone needed access to the credit and financial services the Medici controlled. By 1420, the Medici Bank had branches in Rome, Venice, Naples, Milan, Geneva, Lyon, Avignon, Bruges, and London. They were the first truly international bank. And they used this network to create a system that had never existed before. They could create money out of thin air. This is the mechanism that changed everything. Fractional reserve banking. Let me show you exactly how it worked, because this is the same system your bank uses today. Here's the basic concept. A merchant in Florence deposits 100 gold florins with the Medici Bank for safekeeping. The Medici give him a receipt saying he can withdraw 100 florins anytime. Now, the Medici know from experience that not everyone withdraws their money at once. On any given day, maybe 10% of depositors want their money. So the Medici keep 10 florins in the vault to cover withdrawals. But what about the other 90 florins? They lend it out. They lend 90 florins to a merchant going to Venice, charging 8% annual interest. Now here's where it gets interesting. That merchant takes the 90 florins, buys goods in Florence. The seller deposits the 90 florins back in the Medici Bank. The Medici now have 90 more florins on deposit. They keep 9 florins in reserve and lend out 81 florins. The borrower spends the 81 florins, the recipient deposits it, and the Medici lend out 73 florins. This cycle continues. The original 100 florins in deposits becomes, through multiple rounds of lending, nearly 900 florins in total loans. The Medici created 800 florins out of nothing. They don't actually have this money, but as long as everyone doesn't demand their deposits at the same time, the system works. And here's the genius. The Medici are earning 8% interest on 900 florins in loans, but only paying 3% interest on 100 florins in deposits. They're making money on money that doesn't exist. This is fractional reserve banking, and it's exactly how modern banks operate. When you deposit $10,000 in your checking account, your bank keeps maybe $1,000 in reserve and lends out $9,000 to other customers. Those borrowers spend the money, it gets deposited elsewhere, and that bank lends out 90% of it again. The original $10,000 becomes $90,000 in total loans across the banking system. Money is created through lending, and the Medici invented this system in the 1400s. But fractional reserve banking was just the first innovation. The second was even more powerful, turning government debt into an asset. In 1427, Florence was at war with Milan. Wars are expensive. The government needed money immediately, but tax revenue came in slowly over the year. So Florence did what governments always do. They borrowed. They forced wealthy Florentine citizens, including the Medici, to lend money to the government. These were called forced loans, or prestans. You had to lend based on your wealth. If you refused, you were exiled or worse. Now, forced loans had existed for centuries, but they had a problem. Once you lent money to the government, your capital was locked up for years until the government paid you back. You couldn't access it. You couldn't use it. You were stuck. The Medici saw an opportunity. What if you could sell your government loan to someone else? What if government debt could be traded like any other commodity? Cosimo de' Medici, Giovanni's son who took over the bank in 1429, created a market for these loans. If you held a government bond promising repayment in 10 years with 5% annual interest, Cosimo would buy it from you at a discount. He'd pay you 80 florins for a 100 florin bond. You got cash immediately. He got a guaranteed 5% return plus the profit from buying at a discount. This created the world's first bond market. Government debt became a tradable asset, and the implications were enormous, because now governments could borrow unlimited amounts. They didn't need to worry about locking up wealthy citizens' capital. Those citizens could sell the bonds to the Medici or other investors and get liquid cash. The government got funding, the original lenders got liquidity, and the Medici got a profitable investment with guaranteed returns. This is exactly how the modern bond market works. The US government issues treasury bonds. Investors buy them. Those investors can sell the bonds to other investors anytime. The bonds trade on secondary markets. And the government's $38 trillion